Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today. Today we'll be discussing the fallout between PSG and Mbappe. We react to some of the top headlines in the world of soccer. I continue my series of previewing Euro groups. Today's is Group B of Euro 2024. We discuss how big of a challenge the Liverpool job will be for Arne Slot. And make sure you stick around for the end of the show, where I'll be giving you my thoughts on some of the which players are under the most pressure at Copa America. Before we start off, I would like to ask that you like and follow the show. Also, we get a number of questions that come in during the show, so to ensure that your questions get read on the air, I ask that you use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net with your questions. This puts your questions at the top of the list so that I can see it, and it also really helps grow the show. So again, the link is the gsmcpodcast.net. We have to start off with this situation amongst PSG and Mbappe. There's a falling out between the two. Obviously, this is not something that's surprising. This is something that's been really happening for the past few years now regarding Mbappe's contractual situation and just a little bit back and forth going between them. So, the latest report that came out is that Paris Saint-Germain have yet to pay Kylian Mbappe his bonus and 2 months of wages of 2024, which I believe was April and May. And Mbappe said in a press conference, said that several people made him unhappy. Said certain people at PSG made him unhappy when he made his first news conference since he went to Real Madrid. He would sources also said that PSG felt he was ungrateful in what he said, and that PSG won't pay the 80 million in wage and bonuses because they want to recoup the money for his departure, which Mbappe agreed to. Apparently, there was a gentleman agreement Mbappe agreed to with PSG back in August. Mbappe is wanting the money back because PSG voluntarily put him on the bench at the end of the season once he confirmed to the media that he was leaving the club. Actually, he's owed the bonus of February and the wages total of April and May, and we don't know yet if the club is going to pay him the wages for June. At the beginning of the season, Mbappe said that he was told by the PSG hierarchy, I assume Nasser Al-Khelaifi, the CEO and the crew, that he would never play during the season, and that the club tried to do everything possible to make him, to keep him happy over the past 7 years. And he was told, but at the beginning of the season, Mbappe was told that he'll never play again. He said in this conference that he had, by the way, he had this conference with the French national team. He said that Luis Campos, which is the sporting director of PSG, and Luis Enrique, the manager of PSG, were the ones that saved him, were the ones that were able to convince Nasser Khelaifi and the crew to allow Mbappe to play this season, to see out his contract. And this is not the first time Mbappe has been involved with negatively with Nasser Al-Khelaifi. He said, this is what Kylian Mbappe said, quote by quote, "The club made me understand that I wouldn't play. They told me to my face. They told me violently. Luis Enrique and Luis Campos saved me. I wouldn't have set foot on the pitch again without them. Just the fact I was playing was a great source of pride, but it's certain that next year I won't be satisfied with a year like that." And this is not the first time Mbappe has been close to joining Real Madrid. He was close to joining them in summer of 2022, but he eventually re-signed with PSG. And it's a very like big story to unpack. First of all, let's go. Okay, we're gonna go big picture, but first from this perspective, it really comes down to the fact that Nasser Al Khalifi, he does not want to lose Mbappe on free. He wanted to protect himself. That's why he would, at the beginning of the season, by pressuring Mbappe to saying he's not going to play, so he would extend his contract, because this was really the nightmare situation for Nasser Al Khalifi, losing a guy like Mbappe for free, and he was duped. But then again, if you look at it from the bigger picture, PSG have a lot to blame in this, because they fed this beast in Mbappe. They allowed him to turn into the guy he is. The power that he had came from PSG. PSG allowed this. There was a problem, and they let it fester, and they bowed to it, and now they're paying the cost of it. Now, this gentleman agreement thing that Mbappe had with PSG, at the end of the day, the court is gonna, the court will handle that. Whether there's, Mbappe's group is gonna sue or not, that'll be dealt with, and we'll know for sure. A gentleman agreement, at the end of the day, that doesn't mean much if it's not on paper, if it's not in writing. They can't, Mbappe's group can't, or what's it called? PSG can't not pay him because of some sort of gentleman agreement that they had. This has to be, or if there was one and it has something to do with, and PSG voluntarily putting him on the bench, if that is a clause in there, I don't know. That's just a whole tricky situation that the court will have to deal with. But just regarding this, I think Nasser Al Khalifi, he could be angry all he wants, but he should take major responsibility in the fact that he fed the beast that is Mbappe. He allowed him to have so much control of the team when he saw the ridiculous wages that they provide for Mbappe, the ridiculous treatment of a very young guy, of groveling to keep him at PSG, the way that they just absolutely groveled, the way they gave him the power to, to push out guys like Messi, not Messi, but more primarily Neymar, to push guys like him out, to really give him the keys of the team. The way that he had power over what position he played, even though in certain times him playing the number 9 was the best for PSG. The fact that he had the power to play where he wanted and all that, they gave him a lot of power. They did, and and it just fed the ego of Kylian Mbappe, and it led to this issue that PSG is facing now. And at the end of the day, Nasser Al Khalifi, if he wanted to get money out of Mbappe, because Mbappe had, when Mbappe resigned, he had a 1-year deal, and it was another option. If he wanted to really get money out of Mbappe, that the January of last season, that was his opportunity. He needed to make it clear with Mbappe, are you going to re-sign with us next season? We need to know now, or else we'll let you out. Instead, he didn't. I guess he couldn't get that commitment. He waited to the summer, and I don't know what Nasser Al Khalifi was thinking, but I guess he just in his head he was assuming, Mbappe is going to re-sign on. We're not going to lose this, star for nothing. And at the end of the day, Mbappe and his agents, they duped PSG, I don't think they necessarily tricked them, because PSG knew what they were signing up for. They knew the structure of the contract. But, maybe Mbappe made it seem like he would be re-signing with PSG through the talks, and maybe Nasser Al Khalifi felt betrayed by that. But at the end of the day, what's on paper is what's on paper. Those reports from earlier a few months ago that they were in a screaming match between Nasser Al Khalifi and Kylian Mbappe. and it's just very, very, it's very, very toxic, and it's, in my opinion, it's very counterproductive for Nasser Al Khelaifi to do what he's been doing. Because I think at the end of the day, Mbappe, what he did in terms of how he got out of PSG, I don't really blame him. At the end of the day, that's kind of the leverage that football players have nowadays, especially a player of his. So I'm not gonna blame him on that. The way that he behaved, the way he pushed out certain players, the arrogance he had on the pitch of not letting Neymar take a penalty after Mbappe missed one, just things like that. Obviously, huge things to play for Mbappe, and I've always said Mbappe's ego needs to be checked. But Nasser Al Khelaifi has not dealt with the situation properly. It's been run poorly by him, and PSG in general have been pretty dysfunctional since he's came in. Yes, they've won League Ones, but when you spend the amount of money that they have spent, and you build the way that they built their teams, and not winning a Champions League, in certain seasons not even getting particularly close, it's really confusing. Now PSG, they're gonna move on to a new project, which I like what they've did last season post this. I think getting rid of Mbappe was the last thing that they needed to clean out everything wrong with the old PSG. I think they have now a good opportunity under a manager like Luis Enrique, and they still got players like Ousmane Dembele, a Warren Zaire-Emery, a Bradley Barcola. I think this PSG team can build something, a Donnarumma. And so they plan to continue on with this new project under Luis Enrique. And I don't think they're going to skip a beat. I don't think losing Mbappe is going to lessen their chances of getting that ultimate prize and winning the Champions League. I really don't. I don't think that. Just like how I don't think Mbappe going to Real Madrid increases their chances of winning the Champions League again next season. I don't think this, and it's not a criticism on Mbappe. It's just how I feel about the situations that PSG and Real Madrid are in. I don't think, but that's just my opinion, of course. So, yeah, that's the interesting part of it. We're going to take a short break here. When I come back, I'm gonna talk about some of the top headlines going on in the world of soccer.
Looking for your daily fix?
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
Before the break, I gave my reaction to the fallout that has occurred between PSG and Mbappe post his exit. It's time to react to some of the top headlines in the world of soccer. Now, obviously, the situation we find ourselves in the world of soccer, it's the post club entering the Euros and Copa America. That's the time that we're in. A little bit less of a busier time. We do have friendlies going on in preparation. A little bit of changes here and there, but not a crazy deal going on right now. Currently, there's been a few international friendly games. You saw Spain, they're able to start off their campaign of preparing for the Euros. They got a 5-0 win. Mikel Oyarzabal was able to get 3 goals into the back of the net. Ferran Torres scored a goal. He could potentially be that answer for the Spain's number 9 issues. France defeated Luxembourg 3-0 today. Mbappe got on the score sheet there. Belgium, they were able to get a 2-0 win over Montenegro as they continued their preparation for the Euros. Denmark, behind an Eriksson game-winning goal, was able to get past Sweden and win that game in the dying moments. Slovakia, they're continuing to prepare for their European Championships. They defeated San Marino 4-0 as they get ready for the European Championship. I think the biggest headline for me amongst the friendlies today was Uruguay completely outclassing Mexico today in terms of physicality, in terms of pure pace and aggression. I just thought the Uruguayans looked more physically, more athletic. They had ball players in the team. I thought Darwin Nunez, he got a hat-trick. I thought Facundo Pellistri was sensational. Just completely dominated this weak Mexican team. And what Rodrigo Bentancur, what he was able to do in the midfield, he was just a man amongst boys. I'd be very, very concerned if I'm Mexico, seeing this kind of performance, because this kind of the kind of level that they're gonna have to face if they want to make a run in this Copa America. And I think they're in a chance for a long Copa America, and I think there's a very good chance they don't get out of the group, because losing 4-0 to Uruguay, and not the way that they lost, in the manner, it was 4-0 after 46, 47 minutes, and they were just completely outclassed. You had all these players that played in Liga MX versus players that play for Napoli, players that play for Liverpool, players that play for United, players that play for Tottenham, players that play for Atletico Madrid. And the concerning thing about it as well is, you could argue Uruguay don't have the best player on their team, Federico Valverde. They were able to do this without Federico Valverde. This is a team under Marcelo Bielsa. They have a clear way of playing. They have a clear style. And, they're ready to make a run at this Copa America. I think this is a brilliant, brilliant team. And then you look at Jimmy Lozano, this Mexico team. And Jimmy Lozano, he's looking like he might get fired before the Copa America, even though they're already, he's already, they're already parting ways with him. Post Copa America, it might look like he doesn't even survive Copa America. The way that their performance has been a joke, and I don't understand why he's even the manager at this point. If you're gonna replace him as they make their run to the World Cup, why not just bring in the manager early? Maybe they're thinking, the project starts after this Copa America. This just to assess with the young team that they have here. Which at the end of the day, I think that also, stoves off a little bit of the pressure. The fact that this is a young, look, this is not a younger team. This is just a team that doesn't have Memo Ochoa, Santiago Jimenez, Raul Jimenez, and Chucky Lozano. There's still some players that have of age in this team that look very, very bad today. I thought some of the the quality with Mexico is still there. They just don't have the athleticism, and sometimes it just seems off. And the Facundo Pellistri, he looked like a man amongst boys with his pace. Nobody could keep in track of him. Edson Alvarez, he happens to be the better player, one of the better players on this Mexico team, but him just seemed like he was out of it too, playing in that center back position. It's a concerning time for Mexican football, and if they want to have a legit chance to do any sort of damage at this World Cup, something needs to change, and I don't know exactly how you can change it in that fast of a time. I think it's a concerning time. I think the real project is to plan for the 2030 World Cup and to use this World Cup in 2026 as just some, as a form of development, because I don't think they have any sort of legit chance to compete, let alone this Copa America and the World Cup in 2 years. But again, things could change. So never let off hopes if you are a Mexican national team fan. James Maddison, he has been cut from the England Euro 2024 squad. It's a decision. It's a little, maybe a little. This is the 33-man squad, so there's gonna be players that are gonna get cut. But it is a little. It is some news. James Maddison, he had a brilliant start to the season, and if if you use the first couple months of the season, and then if you, let's say the Euros was in like the November of the Copa, like the World Cup was last time, I think James Maddison would definitely be in, based on what his form that he had earlier this year, and he was going to be able to give this England team a little bit difference in terms of creativity and all that. But now, with the form dropping post-injury, and I think you already have a player in Cole Palmer that gives you a lot of similar assets to James Maddison, and someone who's in much better form than him. I don't see a real shot that James Maddison had to give minute. Obviously, he's a guy that can bring in something, but I just think the drop-off was too wide, and, they have just better players at that position. And again, Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham, they have those two midfield positions locked up. Now, if you want to go with a little bit more stability, you can go with a guy like, a Cody Mainu or Conor Gallagher, okay? And then if you want to go a little bit more attack-minded, you'd probably go with a guy like Cole Palmer or Phil Foden. So it didn't seem like, he had a legit shot in that pecking order to get some sort of minutes there. So, maybe this opens up an opportunity for a guy like a Jared Bowen to potentially get into the squad. Maybe an Eze from Crystal Palace. Who knows? Maybe they bring both Ivan Toney and Watkins. It opens up another attacker for the squad. I think this makes it comfortable for guys like Cole Palmer. I think he'll definitely be in. I think Jack Grealish would definitely be in. I think Anthony Gordon, Saka, they're definitely going to be in. But this definitely gives a chance to some of the guys that were on the outer looking in terms of attackers to get in. There's been the Amnesty International, they have urged FIFA to assess the human rights risks before awarding World Cups. There's been countries that are bidding to host the 2030 and 2034 World Cups, and they want them to agree to build commitments and reformations in terms of preventing any sort of human right violations that can be formed in the tournament, in regards to the building of the stadium, the construction workings, the human rights within the country of where the tournament is happening. They just want a good, they want an improved way of assessing human right risk before awarding them the World Cup. Kevin De Bruyne, he celebrated 100 caps with the goal in the 2-0 win over Montenegro. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Kevin De Bruyne, he continues his brilliant national team career, and I think Belgium are a little bit of a dark horse at this European Championship, because we know the golden generation has passed. They're not at that level anymore, but I still think they're going under the radar. And I think some of the problems that they had at that last World Cup in terms of within the squad, I think those issues are gone. I think also with Domenico Tedesco coming in, it brings a little bit new life within the team. They have the issues with Courtois, which was clear earlier this season, and let's be honest, Tedesco said he's going to give time for injured players to come back. So I think that's another clear indication that this Courtois not being at this Euros has nothing to do with the actual injury. He came back and played in the Champions League final. So let's make it clear. It has nothing to do with the injury, and rather Courtois just doesn't want to play for Belgium, or Tedesco just doesn't want him in. They can say all about what about the injury or not, but it's clear the situation was Courtois. And I think it's good to get any sort of bad apple out of the camp, honestly. If this decision did come from Domenico Tedesco, which I don't know if it did, I would be willing to defend him. And you want to get rid of all the bad apples, and yeah, I'd applaud that decision. And there's a decision that takes guts for a guy going into his first major international tournament as a manager. So I applaud him. We're gonna take a short break here. When we come back, it's time to preview Group B of Euro 2024.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Before the break, we reacted to some of the top headlines going on in the world of football. We move on to preview Group B of Euro 2024. We continue the series. It's time to preview Group B. First of all, I want to say there's a lot going on with this group. In my opinion, you have 3 of the top 9 teams at this European Championship, all within Group B. When you look at the likes of Spain, Croatia, Italy, I think these are 3 teams that could realistically expect to go far. I know Italy are kind of, in a transitional period in terms of their national team, and, they've lost a lot of defenders over the past few weeks, and it's kind of been a crisis in that back line. But I still think they should go into this Euros thinking, we can make some sort of a realistic run. And then you have an Albanian team, which is unique. It's an Albanian team that is not going to be a pushover. It's not going to be in the pushover at this European Championship. They got out of their group by winning it. They won their group over the Czech Republic. Yes, they finished level on points, but they did it. They were the winners of their group, and they're managed by Brazilian manager Silvinho. Who kind of plays who plays good football. He's the ex-Arsenal defender Silvinho, and he discussed how they're embracing the underdog role, and that they're not gonna be in Albania, they're not gonna fear going up against the likes of Spain, Croatia, and all that. So I think this is a very good group. I would say Spain, with the players that they have, with the pedigree that they have in the international tournament over the past few years, I think they fully expect themselves to win this group. But I definitely think we can have a lot of drama in this group. With Croatia opening up against Spain, that's going to be a very interesting game, in my opinion. Very interesting game that I think is going to be tight. I think Croatia, with the experience that they have probably, in my opinion, the best manager at this entire tournament in Zlatko Dalic, and what he's shown his ability to do with this Croatian national team, to make them better than the sum of their parts, to provide a structure for them, and the discipline that they have had under him, in his CV so far. His first World Cup with Croatia, taking them to the final, and then he took them in the 2022 World Cup all the way to third place. He took them to the semifinal, they lost, and then they won the third place game. So I still think this Croatia team, now obviously Luka Modric is aging, and Kramaric, he's still going to be the striker for Croatia, which he's a little weak, but he's coming off a season with 15 goals and 6 assists. So that's a pretty good year for him. He was pretty poor at the World Cup in my opinion. At certain moments, there was not poor, but there was he wasn't at that level, at that semifinal level, and it really showed in that Argentina game. But this season he scored 15 goals, and I think he has a real shot at this Euros. Now Luka Modric, he's had a more bench role at Croatia, at Real Madrid this season, but he's going to come in and he's going to be there. It's imperative for him, Mateo Kovacic, and Brozovic to all have a brilliant tournament this European Championship. They got a guy like Pasalic, Marko Pasalic. He scored a goal today. I think he has a chance to be a key factor in this team. He's a young player. He actually played for Borussia Dortmund. Now he's playing at Reshka in the Croatian league. But yeah, no. For me, Kovacic is going to be key. Kovacic and his ability to connect from the back line to the front forwards, he's going to be key. Modric will always be key. Brozovic and the protection that he provides. Vardiol being back there, he plays his best football for Croatia. He was able to turn it on near the end of the season for Manchester City. I fully expect him to be the dominant center back that he was at that last World Cup. That he really made a name for himself. Now Ivan Rakitic, now that one, or Ivan Perisic. Now, is he able to? He's been out for a lot of the season. He's been playing this. He's played 7 matches for the for Split this season. For me, he has always been important. He has always been imperative for Croatian national team. But is he still at the levels? It seems like when these guys, they go back to their team, when they go back to playing for their country, for Croatia, they still step it up despite having poor seasons. So I'm not counting out Ivan Perisic at all. But the form is not there. He's been injured all season. He's going to be coming back for this European Championship. Is he going to have an impact? Because he's going to be important at that left winger position. He's very, very important. He was important for them at the last World Cup. He's important for them at every international tournament. He has been their main form of, main goal scorer. And, he needs to be back at that level, if they want to make a run at this Copa America, at this European Championship. Spain, brilliant team under Luis de la Fuente. They have a real mission at this European Championship to really, the Spanish Federation has been under huge criticism over what happened with their former president at the Women's World Cup in that final, that situation. And it's when it comes to the Spanish national team, a lot of the press has been going towards that. And there's not been much attention on this men's national team. And it's this is a good opportunity for them to remake their image under Luis de la Fuente. This is a huge chance for Rodri to really have his breakthrough tournament for Spain, playing his first major international tournament as that number 6. He takes the Sergio Busquets role because Busquets has been there the last few international tournaments, and Rodri has had to, fit alongside him, even play center back at times. But this is now the key is his. He can be the connector, the conductor that he is at Manchester City, really dictating the tempo of games, really dictating the midfield, owning that midfield. I think he's going to do for a huge tournament. Now, the number 9 issue, I think you go up, Alvaro Morata. He had a good start to the tournament. To the season this season, but he's been poor of late. I think you go with a guy like Ferran Torres. That gives you a little bit something different. But Morata could be a wild card after the bench. I think this is a Spain national team that's overall very, very strong, in my opinion. from back to front. I think they're a very, very strong team, and I don't think they should be a team to be slumped on. And then I spoke a lot about this Italy national team over the past few weeks. They are, despite them missing the World Cup in between, they are the defending European Championship, and they entered this European Championship as champions, and they're here they're back to defend their title. Now they have been, their squad has taken a massive hit. They're in a crisis defensively. Giorgio Scalabrini, he's ruled out because he tore his ACL, and it's very heartbreaking the way it happened in the closing moments of Atalanta's match this season. And so the Juventus, they're gonna replace him with Juventus's 20-year-old defender Federico Gatti. Francesco Acerbi, he was injured with the groin injury last week, so he had to be out. So it's a little bit of it's a big concern for Italy. Now, obviously, Luciano Spalletti, he's gonna try to he's done a good job of trying to controlling the media, like waving it off, which I think is the right approach. You can't make this seem like a bigger crisis, or you gotta fake it till you make it, because you don't want that to get into the players, that a lack of belief being there. So I like what he's trying to do. Now, Luciano Spalletti, what he did at Napoli, the style of play, the dominance that they had, I think he can provide something similar of that aspect to this Italian national team. Now, they have to be very strong defensively, despite these defensive crisis that they're going through. They have to be strong defensively. I think their midfield is the stronghold of the team. When you look at the likes of when you see a potential team that they can, a potential midfield that they can create with Jorginho, with Barella, Jorginho, I think they can make a strong midfield. Jorginho, Barella, and then I don't know who that third midfielder was to fit alongside them. So, but I think midfield wise, that's their stronghold of the team. But I think attacking wise, you need Chiesa to return to his form from the last Euros. That's imperative. But who do you go with up top now? Retegui is a guy that's it's a dual national that they got from Argentina, and it's a guy that they've kind of little hyped up. He's had a good form for. He scored a few goals for Italy, but in terms of club-wise, hasn't really found the back of the net, hasn't really hit his stride yet. Scamacca, he's been up and down this season, after his failed move to West Ham. So I would go with Scamacca. He did score 12 goals, 6 assists, and I think he gives you a little bit something different. He can be a little bit more of a little bit more of sort of a target man because of his size. His Spalletti did say that he's Luciano Spalletti did say questioned his work rate, I guess, saying he's lazy, and it's important for him to in training to prove him wrong, and the work rate does need to improve, and it's just he's a very talented player. He just needs to get it together, and sometimes this European Championship, this atmosphere, gets the best out of players. So I'll definitely put Scamacca because based on whenever the players are at it, he's clearly the best striker Italy has right now, and that's not saying much, but he is. So I'll definitely play him. But overall, that's just a team. I don't know. Italy, they always show up in these sort of, European Championship, in these major international tournaments. But it really does, I'm really interested. I think we're going to know a lot more about this Italy team after that opening game against Albania, to see how these players respond to this sort of atmosphere, if they have that Italian grit and determination within them. We'll know real soon, but I wouldn't count them out for sure. I would not count them out. But if I have to decide who's going to win this group, I will say Spain, and I think Croatia will finish second. I think Italy finished third, which, they could still potentially move on. And I think Albania will probably finish last. We'll take a short break here. When we come back, I'm going to discuss a little bit about Arne Slot and this new role he has at Liverpool.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Before the break, I previewed Group B of Euro 2024. We now discuss how big of a challenge this Liverpool job will be for Arne Slot. Arne Slot is in for a huge challenge. Let's make that clear right now. Not because of some sort of crisis Liverpool are in. I think Liverpool, in terms of squad, in terms of all that, I think they're in a decent position. But the fact that he's following up a guy like Jurgen Klopp, a guy with his pedigree, not just because of the trophies that he won at Liverpool, but because of the emotional connection he created with such Liverpool players, with the organization, with the fans, the persona of Jurgen Klopp, I think there's going to be huge expectation and huge pressure from Arne Slot. And I think Jurgen Klopp has done a very good job of making do with a little bit less. When you look at his net spend compared to a lot of the teams that he does compete with when it comes to the Champions League, when you're competing against the teams like Man City, Real Madrid, all this, or in the Premier League competing with the likes of City, United, Chelsea, Klopp has done more with less in terms of net spend, in terms of bringing in. So that's something Arne Slot is going to have to deal with, and not having as much money as Manchester City and all that. Now, whether or not he's able to do that, that's a whole different thing. But he is going to have to, he does know what he's signing up for. Arne Slot was a former player, by the way. He played in the Eredivisie, and then he's been a manager. What he did at Feyenoord, very impressive. But this is a different beast. This is a different beast, and this is a different time. Now, he does play, I guess, somewhat similar style of play to Klopp in terms of that it's attack-minded, but it's not like the heavy metal German pressing type of way. It's a little bit, it's a little bit more attacking, but a little bit more possession-based, just a little bit more possession-based kind of football, which is still good attacking football. Don't get me wrong. It's not the exact same thing. Now, this squad, what could he do with this squad? I think this squad is a squad. This season, you could tell, and there was times that they were hanging on when they were trying to play in this title race. You could tell it was just a next step a little bit too far, and they were hanging on at certain times, and eventually it just collapsed. So I don't think realistically, I think gaining top 4 next season will be a great achievement for Arne Slot. I don't think they're in it for the title race, especially with the transition that the Liverpool players are going to have to make. Now, the good thing for Arne Slot is, Jurgen Klopp did kind of start the transition just a bit, bringing in a guy like Dominic Szoboszlai, Alexis McAllister. Now, I still think you need that one more midfielder to complete that group. I don't think Gravenberch provides that. And, you're able to retain Mo Salah, probably a newer, hungrier Mo Salah, now to prove something, I guess, since his first year, with Liverpool under Klopp. You get a guy like Luis Diaz, who's very good. You could have Jota back. Darwin Nunez. I think he can be very good under Arne Slot. You know, you still have Virgil van Dijk, and a guy like Konate, who's been injury ravaged, but someone who has high potential. And then I like to see what Arne Slot wants to do with Trent Alexander-Arnold. There's a lot of England. They've said they want him to play in midfield if he wants to play, and I don't think that's the best spot for him, because I think his ability to cross the ball, to whip in the balls from the right hand side with that magisterial right foot. I don't think you can. Obviously, in midfield you can pick out balls, and he has shown the ability to do that. I just think he gives you an extra dynamic at that right back position. So I think Arne Slot could really develop. Now that left back position with Andy Robertson, what does he do there? Now Robertson is a little bit aging, but I still think when he plays, he's still a very, very good left back. So I don't think that should be a massive problem, but it's still something to think about. And I just think you can get in a clinical goal scorer. He can continue to develop the likes of Darwin Nunez, Cody Gakpo, and really keep that solid. I really do think Arne Slot has a chance to succeed at Liverpool. It's just that whether or not he's going to get the extra oomph, extra signings to get it over the line, or else they're just going to stay in competing. This is a team that's definitely a little bit thin when it comes to the depth, so I definitely think they need to revamp the depth-wise. But yeah, it's just, for me, I don't think there's many club coach managers that could compete as much as Liverpool were able to compete, despite the net spend being a lot less than the teams that they were competing against. I don't think there'll be any managers that can compete in that situation besides Klopp. That's the main thing that leaves me pessimistic about this Arne Slot situation. This has nothing to do with whether or not Arne Slot is a good manager or not. I think he has a chance. Dutch managers, over the Erik ten Hag, he hasn't really had the best start to his United career, despite winning 2 trophies. He might be on his way out. Don't get me started on that situation, but I don't think it's gonna be like that. But the main thing that does leave me pessimistic is, I don't think bringing in Arne Slot will magically get Liverpool spending with the likes of Chelsea or City or any of those sort of teams and create that kind of, I think what Jurgen Klopp did was amazing in the way that he developed these players. He brought in players that, like a Mo Salah, like a Sadio Mane, like a Roberto Firmino. That front three, they did not cost that much individually. He did have some big signings like a Alisson, like a Van Dijk, like a Naby Keita, who didn't really turn out to be, but most importantly, Alisson and Van Dijk. But that money really came in from having to sell the best player on the team, probably in Philippe Coutinho, to Barcelona, that funded those players coming in. So, it's just, for me, it's whether or not Arne Slot can, have that kind of impact that Klopp had. I'm interested to see. Short break here coming up. When we come back, I'm going to discuss what players are under the most pressure at Copa America. Before the break, we discussed how big of a challenge this Liverpool situation will be for Arne Slot. We now discuss this topic that I was actually very excited to do. What players are under the most pressure at this Copa America? And for me, there's a decent amount of players that have pressure on them. Now, pressure could be, you could look at pressure in, multiple different ways. Now, one way to look at pressure is if these players don't show up, their country are potentially screwed. So, they have the pressure of, for their team. But there's also another form of pressure in that if they don't show up, they could be heavily criticized. Like a guy like Vinicius, who, Vinicius is a very important player, but he could have like an okay tournament for Brazil, and they could still win it, but the criticism will still be on Vinicius. Now, if you look at Christian Pulisic, on the other hand, it's a different kind of pressure for him because, he's already had a brilliant World Cup, and he's been brilliant for the U.S. men's national team since he's come in. So if he doesn't have the best of Copa Americas, there won't be huge criticism on him. It'll just be the fact that the U.S. would be probably doomed and they wouldn't do nothing. So that is a different sort of kind of pressure. But again, I'm gonna start off actually with Vinicius Jr. Now, this is important for him when it comes to, potentially winning the Ballon d'Or, because, there's the European Championship coming up that will give them Ballon d'Or raise credit of someone like a Toni Kroos wins, the Euros, But Vinicius Jr., since he started dominating for Real Madrid, he hasn't been able to replicate that sort of form for the Brazilian national team. In my opinion, at that last World Cup, he was pretty, in that game against Croatia, it was not good from him. In fact, he got yanked off. So, eventually, the Brazilian fans are going to want the same form that he gives. Him and Rodrigo, they're going to expect the same form at Real Madrid to replicate at Brazil. And the dominance that he had at Real Madrid, he needs to provide that for Brazil. So it's going to be important. And, if he really wants to take that role of being the guy for Brazil, he has to. He has to take it. Now, Christian Pulisic, I discussed earlier, being the face of American soccer, it comes down to the fact that this is a home World Cup for home Copa America for the U.S., and they do want to make a run. And if they're trying to make a run, Christian Pulisic has to be one of the best players in this tournament, let alone on his team. And he's been very good at AC Milan this season, probably his best season overall. When you look at the form from start to finish, he's been a crucial part of the team. Scoring 12 goals, 8 assists. Very good season, and he really is the face of the U.S. men's national team, and he's only 25 years old. There's a lot there to do. He has he's very, very talented, and if the U.S. wants to make a run, if they want to get past potentially Brazil or Colombia, it's gonna be through the feet of Christian Pulisic. Now, Darwin Núñez, this is a guy that, in my opinion, he really disappointed at the last World Cup. Didn't score any goals, was not really effective in the way I thought he would be. But he did score a hat-trick today. And, I've said this a lot. In these international tournaments, Uruguay has had, that one or two players that rise above, Forlan at the 2010 World Cup, Suarez in the 2014 World Cup, Cavani and Suarez to an extent in the 2018 World Cup. And I really expected the 2022 World Cup to be Darwin Núñez's moment to rise up. Now, obviously, maybe it was just a little bit inexperience, his first major international tournament, but now playing with Marcelo Bielsa in his form that he's had for Uruguay, scoring a hat-trick today, it's imperative for him to really kickstart his career and have that kind of signature, Uruguayan star signature international tournament for him to get the country behind him. He's a very lethal player with his pace, with his ability, and if he can just get one into the back of the net, I think it just completely changes something. If he can score that one goal earlier in the tournament, I think it completely, because with a guy like him on confidence, with the pace that he has, he will be a headache for any center back partnership. And Uruguay is very, very talented. That starting 11 is very, very talented. And having to deal with pace, with Pelestri and Darwin Núñez, that's massive. That's a little big thing. Lautaro Martinez, man. huge pressure for him at this Copa America. The last World Cup, basically, getting benched after the first game and just not really being effective at all. In fact, being pretty horrible in their campaign but he was very important in the Copa America campaign beforehand, and in this season in Serie A he's been absolutely phenomenal. And I think this form that he's had this season gives him, with 24 goals and 3 assists, gives him a chance to get back in playing with Messi. Now obviously Julian Alvarez, he also has a stake to claim in that. But I think there's a way you could fit Julian Alvarez, Lautaro Martinez, and Messi all together. But Martinez, it's very, very important for him just based on the last World Cup that he had. He really wants to get it because he doesn't want to be left in that Paulo Dybala bubble of not being able to play alongside Messi. So I think this Copa America will be very, very good for Martinez to get his Argentinian career back on track. I would say Giovanni Reina is also under huge pressure. He's been really bad. Not really bad, but it's just been not a good spell for him at Nottingham Forest. He's going to head back to Dortmund, which he'll not play with Edin Terzic being there. So he's going to have to, this is a good chance for Copa America to put some good tape on for his resume, for his, to convince a future employer, because he currently doesn't have a situation in his club situation. So, with having, he is 21 and he's still young, and if he's able to have a breakout tournament at this sort of stage, I think it sets his career back on track, and he can make that move to a team that will play him, that will, put him in. Now, is he going to start at this summer? I think he should. Will he? I think so, but if he does start, he does need to be a force, and he does really need to be a star, not just for the U.S. to go far, but for him to get his career back on track. This is a good one. Moises Caicedo, he hasn't had the best season for Chelsea, with the amount of money lined up for. But now he's going to Ecuador and he wants to prove a point. This is an Ecuador team that played very well at the last World Cup despite not getting out of the group stages. He played very, very good. He actually scored a goal in that tournament against Senegal. But Caicedo is one of the brilliant players in my opinion, at this Copa America. In terms of midfielders, I would definitely put him in the top 6 at this Copa America. So I think this is important to show his potential on this kind of stage. At this Copa America. Now Colombia, they want to make a deep run, so I think they're the 4th best team at this Copa America. I discussed the best player for Brazil. I discussed the best player for Uruguay. I'm not gonna put Messi in this topic because if Messi doesn't win this Copa America, it doesn't make him the GOAT, so I'm not going to go there. But I will discuss Luis Diaz. Luis Diaz is a guy, he's in a strange place in terms of he doesn't get the accolation that he deserves, especially the season that they had that reached the Champions League final. Now, this season he's been up and down, but with pure ability and his verticality and his, how direct he is and his ability to, scorch a fullback, I think he's a huge, huge talent. And he's a guy, if he can go on a marvelous run, he can lead this Colombia team potentially on a run to the final, maybe even win it. That's the kind of, and he's a 27-year-old. He is in the peak of his prime. And I think, he will be the focal point for this Colombia. So, it's imperative for him to step up and really, enter, this next season, his first season under Slot at Liverpool with a good, with a good tournament and a potential run with Colombia. And I think Colombia, are going to really bank on him. Not just his ability to score goals, which is going to be very, very important, but it's also his ability to create, whip in crosses, get it past a man and make make the back four shift towards him and open up space for someone else and find them. I think he's going to be very, very, very important for Colombia. I would say out of all the best players out there in this tournament, him, Darwin Núñez, Vinicius, they are going to be, and Christian Pulisic, they are all they're going to have the biggest impacts on their team, and they'll be the biggest deciders on how far their teams can go at this Copa America. So, yeah. Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sport Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. Thank you once again, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.